engineer, the former wicket keeper of India. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Let me fix this nicely. There's something. My
Yes.
pictures. There you go.
So good
Hi,
to have
hi.
you, sir.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Right on time.
Absolutely on the mark. I think the connection is a little slow. Yes, I think we've got you now. So, how are you doing, sir? And how is the lockdown treating you? I'm sure it must not be very easy sitting at home and just just being home. You know?
I have I have the older I get, the more I was traveling. The busier I was for some reason. I used to be flying out of the city every 2 days. Sometimes come back to the city. Don't not even go home. Straight from the airport, do a shoot somewhere, get onto another flight, go out again. So I used to be busy as hell. But what I realize is that the lockdown does not tell you that you're not supposed to be busy. It just says that you're locked down. It doesn't tell you you're not supposed to be occupied, be busy, keep the day. My whole day goes from morning to night doing work, doing shows, chatting with wonderful people like you, and conducting my sessions, which I do on film and screenwriting. I'm teaching. Uh, Time well spent. Nothing wrong.
That is really fantastic. In fact, I was reading about your online sessions with screenwriters, and I felt it is really amazing that you're guiding people who want to join the industry and make a name for themselves in the future.
See, I'm telling you, like maybe 25, 30 years ago, there was just one institute. Um, and What can I say? The guidance is so important because the film industry has become a big melting pot right now. We need more and more young people to put in some good technical work so that we can make good movies. Writing is the bedrock of it all. And if we don't, nurture that, then our film industry will kind of remain in the place that it is. And there's nothing wrong with it right now, but it can only improve. It should improve and become better, more international, So the little that I have learned screenwriting as a subject. Um, in my travels, I've been reading a lot. I have a guru who teaches me, and I'm trying to just share that knowledge with young writers.
In fact, one of the great things, we've obviously loved you in the various characters that you've played on screen, but I've watched your talks and your story has been so inspirational. It is, for me, I mean, I love the work that you do, but I think your story is why I really respect you, and I think you have a lot to tell others, and it's been so inspirational.
I think, Nishad, I think everybody has a story. I think everybody has a story. No one has a story which says, I sat at home and I didn't do anything. Everyone has a story. There's a struggle, and I think that the greater the struggle, the better the story. Uh, it's just that I get a microphone to talk about it more than others. But everyone, there may be so many. You read Humans of Bombay, and you realize. Um, Everyone has such a wonderful tale to tell. It may be a sad tale, it could be an inspirational tale, but nevertheless, it's a tale. I feel this morning someone was telling me about there was a ad shoot that I was doing in the house. My sons were shooting me. We were designing shots in the house with whatever little equipment we had with the iPhone and. Uh, so the MD called up and said, "I'm so grateful for the effort that you put in. We never expected this kind of effort." I said, "I've always realized one thing that whenever I've seen any success in my career, it's only when I made put that extra yard in. If you don't put in the extra yard, somehow success eludes you. It is always never do just the amount that people expect you to do. You have to do a little more, and that little more is very difficult. Reaching the standard is difficult enough, but reaching a little more is very, very, very difficult. So that's my mantra. I can't help it. That's the way I am.
And one of the reasons I invited you is because you are a big cricket lover, like most of us in this country, and sport is about going that extra mile. Champions
Sure.
go that extra mile, like you just mentioned. So
That's what
where
I mentioned. It. That's why I said that little extra yard. Whether it's the Olympics or whether it's cricket or to reach out to the crease or that little extra yard to hit it over the fence. You're absolutely right.
So where did cricket, occupy? What spot did it occupy in your life when you were growing up, and what was your earliest memory of the sport, if you can look back?
Look, I used to go to a school called St. Mary's ISC in Mazgaon, Mumbai, and we were so lucky. We had a big auditorium, and it had a projection room just like any other cinema. It had cinema projection in school, and this to show us lots of films on the Olympics, uh, some very little on cricket, a lot on football. And Pele was, when I was a kid, we used to watch the films of Pele, and what we played in school was it. We never had any TV. We never had international matches coming to Mumbai, except for a test match which would come once every 3 years. Um, and the local Harwood League football that took place at the Cooperage Stadium. So I would go and watch there as kids. We would go and watch. So there was no tennis in town. Then there isn't much international tennis in town. But we used to watch Ranji Trophy and go to the Maidans at what's it called? At
The Marine
Marine
Drive.
Drive. All the gymkhanas. And there used to be cricket matches going on. So you sit on the parapet and watch. Just sit and watch. And then, just get to see 10 minutes. 10 minutes on news used to be the whole news of the whole day would be a 10-minute segment. Only 10 minutes.
Only 10.
Out of that, the whole news. Yeah, the whole news. And in that, the last would be a sports roundup. And the sports roundup, they would show us 3 or 4 balls of what happened in the day's play, maybe in England or at Lords or wherever. West Indies, there was never any telecast. But mostly it would be from England. They used to buy 3 or 4 deliveries. Bus. Rohit dikhate. That used to be our, oh my God, look at Tony Gregg. Oh, look at Jon Snow. That's Jon Snow. Look at his bowling action. That's all we got to see in the news. And then many years later, they used to have a thing called Sports Roundup. Hardly any international, but they weren't live television.
Yes.
The first live match, I think, was in 1974. We saw England versus India at Brabourne Stadium. Tony Lewis was captain. Vishwanath scored a century. Tony Gregg scored a century. Tony Gregg, the famous commentator which youngsters will be familiar with. Tony Lewis got out first ball in the first innings, the captain of England. And we used to go and watch that. And I didn't have any male member in my family, so I had to make it on my own. Even Ranji Trophy matches, we used to get lathi charged and, standing in line in a bad way, it was crazy. People used to stick to each other to just get inside. Even for Ranji Trophy match, but I used to go even as a little kid, and I don't think my mother ever, was scared. Oh, send me a message, WhatsApp that you reached. None of that nonsense ever happened. When you're safe, I said, kuch nahi tha. We used to just go. I used to go alone sometimes. I've even passed out, with the heat in a Ranji Trophy match. And, the guy sitting next to me, kind of put water on my face, woke me up, gave me a sip of water and said, Abhi dekh. And, it was no biggie. No biggie.
Now we've got one of our friends, former Mumbai cricketer, Mr. Shishir Hattangadi here. And he's saying, he was saying, like in the questions. So he was talking about Tony Gregg lifting Vishwanath in that test match.
Right.
Do you have any memories of that?
The one thing it was a great innings full of square cuts and square drives. He was a risky player, but I remember very clearly in that match when Vishwanath got his century. Tony Gregg was 6 feet 7 inches tall. I don't know the commentary box. We may not have known that, but he was a lanky guy and he used to bowl with great lankiness. But he picked up Vishwanath in his arms like a little baby after he scored his century. He picked him up and he lifted him to the crowd like very sporting gesture. I remember that image very, very well in Brabourne Stadium. What else did
And
he
while
ask?
he was saying, he was something about you being his first coach, I think. I think that's also something.
He was in my class. We used to play together. He was a wonderful cricketer and a great friend. And we used to play, backyard cricket. We used to play backyard cricket, underarm cricket together. And yeah, I guess I could call him. He's joking, of course. He was a great cricketer, Bombay captain for many seasons, top scorer for Bombay for many seasons, top scorer for Bombay. Sachin Tendulkar's first captain, Shishir Hattangadi. I just was wondering if he's here.
I think I'm not too sure. Shishir sir, if you're listening, do tell us. And but yes, I mean, all these, you've been so closely connected to the game. Who was that one player or a few players who say you were really in awe of? Like for my generation, it was when color television came in the 90s. For us, it was Sachin. We grew up on Sachin. Who was someone you looked up to and you were like, he's someone who inspires me?
I think Farooq Engineer, because he was a really feared wicketkeeper batsman. He would have, against the West Indies, a fearsome attack of the West Indies. He missed a century before lunch, which was a big thing back in the day during Test matches. Nobody would score a century in one session, and he missed it by 4 runs. He was on the outstrikers, and I don't think they were paying attention to the scoreboard. But he could have got that record back in the day in the 60s. And he was, very flamboyant, and he was acrobatic wicketkeeper, and he was a hard-hitting batsman. He was part of the World 11 as the wicketkeeper, as was my dear Bishan Bedi was in the World 11. So Bishan Bedi also, I was very, very fond of Bishan Bedi, Farooq Engineer, and then Sunil Gavaskar came along, and we were great, big, huge fans. I think my generation, there would be no cricket lover who would say Sunil Gavaskar was not on their list. He was the ultimate, the number one in the world, the original little master, Sunny Gavaskar. Who else in world cricket? I was extremely fond of later on. I was extremely fond of Ian Botham. Ian Botham in the 70s and the early 80s. I just liked his attitude. I liked his attitude to the game, and it was extremely aggressive, but at the same time very, very sporting. He was friendly with the opposing team. He used to go for a drink with the opposing team. He had great relationships with the West Indian cricketers that he played against and with in Somerset. And he was just a brave man. It was called one series which he probably won single-handed was Botham's Ashes.
Oh, yes.
Where he was a captain for a match and a half, and then he said, "I am enough of this nonsense. Allow me to play my game." He handed over the captaincy to Mike Braley, and then suddenly, what happened from a follow-on situation? He flayed the bowling of Australia, turned it around, won the first match, won the series. It was called Botham's Ashes. I think that was 84,
81.
81. Yeah, I'm not good with numbers. Yeah, 81. Yeah, 81. Correct. So that from that moment on, Botham became, one of my heroes, and also, it's what you read about them. I read a double biography, it's auto and bio of him, called a book called "It Sort of Clicks," and that inspired me in many ways to go the extra yard. Also, that book is a lovely book. It sort of clicks. Who else in world cricket would be one of my heroes? I used to love Greg Chappell's batting. Very, very stylish. But when he got his brother to bowl that underarm grubber to the West Indians, I kind of lost it. It just hurt me a lot that, for a man of such immense talent and a team of such immense talent would resort to something like that, it just put me off. But great batsman. Greg Chappell and Ian Chappell. Trevor, okay, but Ian and Greg were great batsmen. Sobers,
Absolutely.
the greatest ever. Sobers, no
Absolutely.
argument. Yeah. Garfield and Viv Richards. So it won't stop. So you have to stop me at some point, Nishad.
I just actually wanted to show you something because you mentioned Mr. Farooq Engineer, and although I've worked around for years, I've only met him once, and this is a caricature of his made by
yeah.
Mr. Austin Coutinho, and I've got it signed by him.
Oh
It was
boy.
a lovely little interaction with him. I missed out on talking to him last year in Manchester when
I was
during
there
the
with
World
him.
Cup. Oh, I was going to ask
Last
you.
year at Manchester, I was there with him. So what happened was we've completed a film called 83 on the 83 World Cup. I'm sure all of you were little babies that time. No, not even little babies, I know. And it was a big turning point in the history of Indian cricket. Not alone Indian cricket, but also I think in Indian attitude. We started believing in ourselves as being world beaters, and we didn't have that little inferiority complex. We are very nice people and all that. All that changed after that. And he was in the commentary box for the 83 World Cup. He was the only Indian commentator with the BBC commentators who was there. So he covered all the Indian matches. And I was asked to play Farooq Engineer in Kabir Khan's 83, which Ranveer Singh plays Kapil Dev. So I said, I just grabbed it. I said, I will only do this role if you tell me that we'll be shooting at Lord's.
Wow.
So Kabir Sir, even if we don't have a scene with you in Lord's, which there is, by the way, we will fly you down so that we can do something at Lord's. And I went down. That time I'd gone 4 times to England in a matter of a month. Went up and down for the games. The World Cup was being shot at that time, and I shot at Lord's. But before that, I was with my family. We went for the India-South Africa match in Southampton. We drove back, and we were flying back to India. And the hotel manager came and said, "Mr. Engineer's outside the hotel," and he asked if he could see you. So I went running, and we had loaded the car. We are locked and loaded and good to go. And we're late as usual for the airport. I run to Mr. Engineer. I say, "Hey, Farooq sir, how are you?" He says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going back to India." He said, "No, don't go. Stay back." I said, "No, what do you mean? My family." No, I just fired it up. So I said, "No, we got to go." He says, "Come back." I said, "From where?" He said, "From the airport." I said, "No, what are you talking about, Mister?" He said, "No, okay, you go to India, drop them, and come back in a couple of days." I said, "What for?" So he says, "You come to my home in Manchester, you be my guest, and we'll go and watch the India-Pakistan match together."
Wow.
So I said, "Okay, it sounds good." I went and sat in the car, and I said, "Where were you? We'll be late." My wife was screaming, all of us, grandchildren, cousins, everybody, we were all sitting in one van, So my wife said, "So are you coming back?" I said, "What do you mean? I have to come back in 3 days." She says, "Yeah, do it. Come back in 3 days." Who gets an opportunity? Yeah. Who gets an opportunity to go and live with your childhood hero? I mean, imagine one of you if you say that Dhoni is my cricketing hero, and 30 years later, Dhoni tells you, "Come and stay at my house." Would you not go? Come and stay at my house. We'll watch a match together, right? So I called him up and said, "Hey, Farooq sir." So he says, "Yeah." He said, "I'm coming." He's saying, "Yeah, what would you like?" He said, "Biryani." So I took biryani with me to England, and he's big foodie, right? So I flew back in a few days, stayed with him. I was supposed to stay 2 nights. He said, stay one more. And we went and saw the match at Manchester from the balcony. It was the most amazing experience of my life, actually. And at the Old Trafford, there's a whole retinue walking behind him, So I'm walking with people, and all including Paul Allett, who played in the semi-finals, was part of the committee, and they are welcoming Mr. Engineer this, Mr. Engineer that, and then to see the respect he has over there at the Lancashire Cricket County Club. And then, of course, after we won the match, and there was a big bar over there, and we started singing songs. Just me. We were about 8 or 10 of us over there in that the bar of the balcony of the what's the big room called?
The long room.
No, no,
Yeah,
no,
under
no.
the pavilion.
Upstairs on the balcony. The members.
The
Gallery.
members lounge.
Yeah. So we were singing songs, and the bar guys didn't want to go home, and we had the most amazing time. Of course, we went home, and I'll never forget that night. Ever stayed, ever. I'll never forget that night.
It is really fascinating. You narrate this story about staying with your hero and going and shooting at Lords. I remember last year when I got to walk on the turf at Lords, I was like, मेरी यहाँ पे तपस्या पूरी हुई है क्रिकेट की.
मैं तो रोया. मैं जब
What
Lords
was
पे
your
चला तो
feeling?
रोया मैं रोया. रणवीर था मेरे साथ. Then Kabir Khan and the whole team, and they took pictures because, welcome to 83, the film. So it was my first day shooting. I started crying. I said, we're standing on the hallowed turf. It's so important. As a child, we've only seen it in hazy black and white, and it's so. What was your experience like?
So I first because India was not playing there and I was following the Indian team. I went in only for a Pakistan-South Africa game briefly, and then later ahead of the World Cup final. After the
Were
final,
you there?
Yes,
England,
for the final.
New Zealand. I flew back after that for that. I came back because I made friends. I made friends at Old Trafford with the sponsors, right?
Yeah.
So they said, no, you want to come? I said, yeah. Saying, come. I said, okay, I go back home and tell my wife, hey, guess what? He's saying, what? I'm going back to London. He said, you're going off your head. So I flew back to London, then I came back, and then I flew back again for the shooting. So that was 4 or 5 times I went in that month, up and down. And it was amazing, that match, that final. My mind was not working after a point.
Yeah, it wasn't, and it's quite. It was interesting. We had 2 Kiwi cricketers sitting close to us. You may remember Roger Twose and Jeff Allott.
Roger Twose, yeah.
Yes, they were there, and it was almost like they had it in their hands, and it was just taken away cruelly, possibly by fate. And you could empathize with New Zealand, but you also felt like this was the occasion that one will remember for a long time.
I don't completely agree with you. I think we can't. I'm a believer that you can't blame your fate on bad luck. I think you write your own fate. The controversial thing is when the fielder threw the ball and the diving what's his name, wonderful cricketer, Ben Stokes just flies past the crease. The ball hits him and goes to the boundary. Now, that's not bad luck. You could have got him out. What if the ball hit the stumps and got him out? You would have won the match. Now, the point I'm trying to make, you could have won the match, is that if you hit the wicket, you win the match. If you miss, you're taking a chance of overthrows. It's your call. So if you want a wicket, you got to take a chance and say, I'm throwing it overthrows to overthrows. And they went for the worst possible overthrows. But that's the choice you make. You cannot blame it on fate.
Very, very,
it's a choice you make. Don't throw the ball. Let him take a single. Let him dive. Okay. They will not make these runs. He gave away 5 runs, and I'm not blaming him. That was the best thing to do. He could have, if he had not gone for shied at the stumps, okay, he could have got him out and said, why didn't he try and get him out? That's the chance you take. That's the game.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I don't feel, I can feel sorry, but I can't say that it was bad luck. You took a chance. You took a chance.
It's a different perspective, and I think I quite like what you said, that he took a chance. And just to ask you, like, staying with your hero again, Farooq Engineer, the Parsis have had a rich cricketing legacy in this country. Growing up, what were the kind of stories that you heard, and how much did they inspire you?
Look, the only Parsi cricketer that I ever spoke to was Farooq Engineer, but through him, and there was a cricketer in Patauri's team called Rusi Surti, one of India's best cover fielders. Rusi Surti, he died a couple of years ago, and his niece is does reporting and things like that. And so I know a lot about Rusi Surti. Then there was a cricketer called Rusi Gigi Boy. He replaced Farooq Engineer in the to West Indies. There was the great Paulie Umrigar. And of course, how can we forget Nari Contractor?
Yeah.
Nari Contractor was the captain of the Indian team when they went to the West Indies, and I think he was struck on the head, hospitalized, almost died. Charlie Griffith, that bowling attack, Charlie Griffith, West Hall, my God, it was the most feared attack. And there, Farooq Engineer was there in next in, Sardesai was next in. And can you imagine, with this guy being hit on the head, taken to the hospital, battling for life, and here these two guys are batting over there with this. I mean, you must have guts, to do something like that. I think youngsters should know a little about the history of cricket. They will appreciate today's cricketers even more. The evolution of how we've come to this level of energy or fielding. And I think Indian fielding has become so good because probably we weren't very good fielders before. We upped our fielding game simply because we were criticized for poor fielding. So I think it's good to know the history of what happened and where we've come, the journey. We were not a good fielding side. We had one decent fielder in every team. The rest were not good fielders, even though they are all my heroes. And I hate to say this in front of my great heroes, but they weren't great fielders. I mean, Bedi, Prasanna, Chandra, Venkat was not a bad close-in fielder, but we had great Solkar. He was a great close-in fielder,
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about the Nari Contractor incident, in fact, they had to fly in a surgeon from Trinidad to Barbados because there was no specialist in Barbados. And I was speaking to Mr. Chandu Borde, and he told me a story. He was actually the 12th man in that game, and he was not playing. So he was one of the people who attended to Mr. Contractor, and they were taking him off the field, and he was holding Mr. Borde's hand. And he was really holding it tight. And he's like, you can. And then Mr. Contractor told Mr. Borde that you have no idea how much it hurts. And then Frank Worrell and the others got together, donated blood. It's a beautiful story when we look back. How they all came together and saved a man's life. And I think obviously someone up there was watching over him, and so it's one of the really touching stories. And I feel
Nari Contractor's daughter, his son bowled for Bombay. Very good fast bowler. Hoshidar Contractor. And his daughter and I used to work. I mean, she's a very fine makeup artist. So when I was a photographer, she used to come and do makeup for me. And she's a Mehra Kola, his daughter. So I used to keep asking her questions about her dad and, stuff like that. Paulie Umrigar, great cricketer, great all-rounder, great cricketer. Yeah.
And when you just spoke about being a photographer, you used to shoot on the Maidans. What was that like? Shooting all these young kids playing the sport, unbridled joy of playing the sport, and you're capturing those moments. What was that like?
Look, I wanted to be a photographer, and I loved sports. So I had no access to the big games, right? So I used to go to the Maidans and shoot. Practice, get the top of the action, the height of the action, understand. If you understand the game, if you know your game, you can be a better photographer. And that's not just for cricket, not just for photography, in everything. If in anything, if you should know your game, if you know what I'm saying. So I used to sit on the Maidan and take pictures. I had a little camera, manual camera. And I used to sell pictures, in those days for 25 rupees a photograph. And then I would jump onto the field and then, sit on the field and with my camera and take pictures. And I would slowly, because I could not frame the entire the batsman, for example, I would go closer and closer. Once I kept going closer, I would drag myself to closer. Suddenly I realized I was almost at forward shot leg, and I was there. And one gentleman came running out of the club, waving out to me. I said, sorry. And they were all laughing at me. They were school cricketers, actually. School kids were batting. And I got up and I started running. I said, I made such a mistake because I was so focused. I forgot that I was close to the playing area. I'm exaggerating, by the way. I was close to the playing area. So one gentleman came running out of the Maidan and started waving out at me. I said, I'm sorry. I said, no, it's okay. And he came running, he chased me. And he says, wait. I thought he'd confiscate my camera. And, what am I doing on the field? It was a school cricket match, but I made a mistake. So he says, please wait, don't go. You're taking photographs with such passion, he said. You're taking photographs with such passion. We'd like to buy some photographs from you. I said, oh, that's wonderful. And I of course recognized the man. He was coaching that cricket team. His name was Eknath Solkar.
Oh,
Eknath,
wow.
yeah. So Eknath Solkar stopped me, and I'm looking like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. This gentleman is going to break my camera, and it's fine because it is the one and only Eknath Solkar. For people who don't know about Eknath Solkar, should look up about Eknath Solkar. He is the son of a groundsman of Brabourne Stadium. He was the son of a groundsman. People used to refer to it in different terminology back in the day. Today it seems a little offensive, but back in the day nobody took offense. He was like the caretaker of the field. He used to water the field. That's very humble background. And he turned into one of the world's best close-in catchers.
Yes.
His diving catches, when he would sit without a helmet, he used to focus. Chandra would bowl one of his googlies, and he would go there, dive full length, legs facing the sky, and hands, right at the popping crease. And he's taken some unbelievable catches and won matches for India. You know the famous saying, how it goes, catches win matches. He also was a left arm medium. He used to open the bowling for India, and he was a middle order batsman. He went to England for 2 tours, and the last match that he played, even Farooq Engineer's last match it is. He doesn't like talking about this because Farooq Engineer got 2 ducks in that match. So he says, why do you keep talking about that match? I said, because that was the first match at the Wankhede Stadium. I was there at the stadium. Farooq Engineer got out on 0-0, and he and Eknath Solkar opened.
Yes.
And
was this against West Indies?
It was against West Indies. So that's Andy Roberts and Keith Boyce and Bernard Julian. And of course, Clive Lloyd was the captain. Viv Richards was there. Gordon Greenidge, Roy Fredericks. There was also Keith Boyce in that team. Derek Murray was wicketkeeper. And Eknath Solkar scored his one and only century in one of the last games that he ever played. And Eknath Solkar scoring a century, he was not a batsman. He was an all-rounder. And all-rounders are bits and pieces all-rounders. And I'm seeing him live in the flesh, telling me, sell me a picture. How much will you charge for a photograph?
Wow.
I said, we'll see how much, whatever, we'll see about that. So that's my closest I'd come to a cricketer, actually. First time the closer I came to a cricketer was Eknath Solkar.
So it was a fanboy moment in a sense, like after he said, after you recognized him.
Fully. I said, Mr. Solkar, I'm such a fan. He said, oh, so sweet you are, so sweet you are. And that's such a nice thing to say. When you say, I'm a big fan, so you're not, oh, thank you. I think it's nicer to say, so sweet you are. It was such a nice way to, such a sweet man. I want Shishir to introduce me to Salim Durrani and many of the cricketers. Yeah, and he said, I'm going to take you to meet him. He must be close to 90 now, Salim Durrani, enjoying life.
88, I think.
Salim Durrani used to score sixes on in test matches. Kaun marta tha sixes? 5 दिन में एक देखने को मिले तो बहुत नसीब वाले. So Salim Durrani ko sab log, we used to chant six, and he would look around at the ground. Okay, six, attack. He used to hit a six. Back in the day, he was one hell of a guy.
It is really amazing that these stories, need to be told. Like a Salim Durrani, even I've been very fortunate to meet him a few times. Even now, the kind of persona he has and the aura,
Prince.
I can only imagine what he would have been like in his younger days. Prince,
Nawab, Salim Bhai. And everybody loved him. Gary Sobers met, I don't know who, another famous cricketer. And that other famous cricketer, don't forget who told me, how is Salim, my friend Salim doing? So he says he's doing great. He's saying, tell him, Gary Sobers, they said, tell him that the world's second best all-rounder is sending his regards to the world's best all-rounder.
My God, this is amazing. And this was where did you meet Sir Gary in the West Indies or
No.
somewhere else?
No. This is another famous. I think was it Vengsarkar who said that to me, because I get to meet all these guys now. I get have dinner with them. With Vengsarkar or someone else. It come to me. So he
Okay.
had great regard for Salim Durrani. What a left-handed batsman and a left-arm spin bowler.
Yes, in fact, in 71, those 2 wickets that he took in the Test match, not a lot is spoken about it, or rather,
It
those
turned the game.
Yes, those performances that are critical but are not glamorous, if we may say.
Yeah. That was a great series actually. We got Gavaskar out of that series. We got it was a great then. Dilip Sardesai scored almost as many runs, maybe more than Gavaskar, maybe, but not as it didn't become such a big deal because Dilip Vengsarkar was almost at the fag end of his career at that point in time, and Gavaskar was on his debut, scoring 440 odd runs in his debut series. You know what I'm saying? He was a
Yes,
young man.
it's
Amazing.
774 runs actually. It was a lot more he scored.
So
And
Vaibhav is saying, would it 83 would be? Why don't you tell us about some cricketers of the present generation? So ask me. Otherwise, we're only talking about 1966. 66 में क्या हो गया? So
but
they want
now,
to know.
yes, I mean something about 83 in the sense. Do you remember
No,
the
no,
days?
83 is also before all of you guys were born. Yeah, these guys are saying. They are saying अभी आज के क्रिकेटर के बारे में कुछ बात करो. That's what they are saying. We are talking too much about nostalgic moments of cricket.
Then, okay, let me ask you currently or even maybe last 10 years, who are the players that you've really enjoyed watching and someone who has given you unbridled joy?
Virat.
I think
Virat.
that's
Yeah, and I'm saying this strongly, because not only is he that one of those solid batting talents that, when you see someone like Nasir Hussain, and I watch a lot of these videos because I just like learning about technique, explaining to you how he does a particular cover drive. And he says, for the life of me, Nasir Hussain says, for the life of me, don't know how he turns his bat, follows through his bat in such a way that the ball pierces between mid off and extra cover. I just don't know how. And the admiration with which Nasir Hussain is describing an opposing team's batting technique. Apart from that, I think that his quest for excellence, the extra yard we spoke about when we started this conversation.
yes.
I think you can see it in his face. You can see it in his eyes. I had gone for his wedding. And there I got to meet all my heroes apart from, meeting Virat. As Padris land up there on time. So I was there. I was the first guy with my wife. We walked in over the empty hall. No one was there. And then in walked Sandeep Patil, and then in walked a whole host of cricketers. And all of them, including Harsha Bhogle, had something to say about Virat. Every time we had a conversation, they would say something about Virat. And I said, yeah, so what is it? He says that he truly leads by example, and we have the fittest team ever, and that's because of this young man. Because you got to lead by example. You can lead by example on the field, but I think it's more important for young people who are out there, whether you're playing cricket or you're working for a tech firm. You have to lead by example, even if you're not a leader. You have to lead by example. Only then will you become a leader, and even off the field. And I think that that's what Virat does. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. I just feel his manner is what we needed to go to another level. And he knows what we need to do to become the number one and stay number one. He knows what we need to do. If there are mistakes and there are some gaps that to be filled in, I think he understands what needs to be filled in and he's working upon it.
Yeah, it is really fascinating the way Indian cricket has changed under his leadership in terms of fitness, the fielding, and all those aspects. And as we discussed earlier, it wasn't quite the same earlier. But if you look back, and there are always moments in Indian cricket we remember where we were when a certain thing happened. So, or what are those matches for you which have stayed here for you, and always you look back and you say, I was here when so and so thing happened?
Mostly I was at home.
Not on set. Not on set.
I remember the '83 World Cup for the 2 or 3 matches that we got to see. We got to see only 2 matches, I think, in the '83 World Cup on cricket, on television. One was the finals and one was our semi-final. Also, then afterwards, we had the World Series cricket, where Ravi Shastri won the Champion of Champions Audi car. And it was a big deal those days. We actually went to his society, Navjivan Society. I told him also. We came looking for the car in the night. We went for a drive, went into Navjivan Society in Mahim. Oh, Audi car kidhar hai? Because we were there, but that was, we used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch those matches. And I remember that moment so well, because when we won the World Cup in '83, everybody must have felt fluke. Okay, West Indies were caught napping. Fluke, chalo, theek hai. Now we have to live up to the reputation that it was not a fluke. But when the West Indies came to India, they thrashed us 5-0 in the one days. Thrashed us. So we said, fluke. And then that was very demoralizing. कि यार वो फ्लूक ही था. दुनिया बोलती है फ्लूक, मतलब एक दिन वेस्ट इंडीज ने थोड़ा गड़बड़ कर लिया and we lost the game, right? And then in '85 we went to Australia under Sunil Gavaskar this time. All right, Azharuddin was a new find in '85. He had just got 3 centuries on the trot. Debut, second match of his career, third match of his career was England. And then we went straight Azharuddin in very ugly powder blue jumper and a yellow stripe. It was the costume that time. And suddenly we won every match.
Yeah.
Not only did we win every match, we got the entire opposing team out every game. All 10 wickets. Except for the finals when Pakistan won 9 wickets. We got only 9 wickets. And we said, oh, I hope this is not the one. And Pakistan was a very strong team under Imran Khan. They had Wasim had become, was a new Wasim Akram was a new guy in there. Imran and there was Tahir Nakash, who was okay. But we had Javed Miandad and Salim Malik and Wasim Raja and Ramiz Raja. And my God, that team was fabulous. And our boys were just tigers. So we had become tigers. Something happened, and I think the loss to the West Indies made a big difference. Not only did the win of the '83 made a difference for us to be world beaters, but the subsequent loss when they came to India and thrashed and took revenge like no other demoralized us, but that helped us to become world beaters again. Because you cannot have the tag of flukies. We cannot live with that tag. And when they won the '85 World Championship of Cricket, Ravi Shastri came back with the player of the series, champion of champions. Mohinder Ramanath played great. Venkateswarlu played great. Azharuddin played great. Srikanth played great. My God. And Shiva Ramakrishnan bowled great. We had a new wicketkeeper called Sadanand Vishwanath, who was a tiger. Yes. And my God, that was a fan. Roger Binney was top scoring wicket taker again, twice, World Cup and this. And then we slowly developed into a world beating team.
Earlier you spoke about reading Botham's book, and were there any other cricket books that have really inspired you or really left a mark or impression on you?
Sunny Days.
Yes.
Sunny Days, Sunil Gavaskar. You know the worth of a human being when he is admiration of his opponent. And the way Sunny describes some of his opponents, if you know your opponent well, you will play according to their, understand that this is their strength and this is what. So the way he would describe his opponents, it was beautiful. Every segment they would talk about one cricketer, that he played against, from John Snow to Imran Khan to the Chappells. and the admiration he had for the opponent, I think, is very important. You must always respect your opponent, and I learned that from Sunil Gavaskar. Then there was one. Then Sandeep Patil was Sandy Storm, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it sort of clicks. Then Flying Stumps by Freddie Truman.
Oh, you've read that.
I've read a hell of a lot. I don't remember the titles, but I read Freddie Truman's, Jim Lakers, and what's his name, who used to write very well? Phil Edmonds.
Oh, who became a
His wife
businessman
was
later.
an amazing writer. अच्छा उसकी बीवी जो थी, Phil Edmonds, she had a French kind of name. I can't. I'll have to remember. But when she wrote in the newspaper, it was like she's an author, not a cricketing. So beautiful are the words. It was almost like yeah, that's Wajiha. Wajiha. You remember? I don't know if we spoke last time. So beautiful are the words. The way she would put it. What's her name? Frances Edmonds. I forget her name. But beautiful writer. Anyway, I think I'm boring everybody with these old stories.
But there is a question for you. Someone's asking, no cricket chat is complete without the mention of Sachin Tendulkar. Your memories of watching Sachin.
Okay, so Sachin was I remember the only thing when he went to Pakistan and he started clubbering Abdul Qadir. And then he was banging Imran Khan all over the place in his debut. The funny helmet, white helmet that he had. So who was this guy? I mean, of course, we know that he and Kamli had set the goddamn record, in school cricket. And I heard Abdul Qadir speak recently before he died in a chat show. You may have seen it, Nishad.
Yes.
And I was in admiration of that man, Abdul Qadir, who spoke about this young Sachin Tendulkar. He says, जब उसने फिर एक ऐसे मारा फिर मैं बोला यार ये लड़का कुछ दुनिया को सिखाएगा क्रिकेट के बारे में और मुझे मेरे पूरे करियर में किसी ने भी एक ओवर में मुझे इतना मारा नहीं और ये 16-17 साल का लड़का क्या कर रहा था. And the way he spoke about Sachin was with such admiration. And I said, that's the way it's supposed to be. If we are all fellow actors, we should admire the other guy instead of saying we're in a competition. We are in a competition in cricket, unfortunately, but the admiration for your talent is actually, you admire the Lord that gave you the talent and the human being that took it forward. It was beautiful the way Abdul Qadir described Sachin Tendulkar's batting on that debut series.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. I think it was at Peshawar, and where they had played that exhibition game, and the game had to be curtailed because of problems, and they decided to play that a shortened one.
Yeah, it got cut short. Yeah, but that Sachin played, he announced his arrival whenever he used to come. Sachin used to love to announce his arrival. He came, he just put, and everybody was the Pakistanis were wondering, ye kaun hai ye? They didn't know that they must have heard school cricket mein khela hai na, school ka bachcha hai ye. And then he showed him. But I think initially he got hit first. First he got hit. And
that
then
was at Sialkot in the fourth test.
In the fourth test.
Yes.
And then he went for it. Yeah.
But it's I was watching a video of yours, I think it was shot in Australia, where you spoke about the VVS Lakshman Rahul Dravid combination. There was some old video. And it takes us back to 2001 Kolkata, that test match where I think probably Indian cricket did change a lot after that, after the follow-on. And, what do you have to say about that and your memories with regards to that test match?
I think we owe BVS and Rahul big. We owe a great debt. We owe them a great debt. I think Rahul Dravid does not get enough credit for that. Because Rahul was always, the more shy. VVS is so more flamboyant in that sense, even as a batsman. But I think every step of the way, Indian cricket made that little extra yard And this was not an extra yard. This was an extra 10 yards.
Oh yeah,
In the history of the
absolutely.
game, every inch but this was outstanding. That match in Kolkata was something else. And then they did it again in Australia. They were quite something.
Yes, that was at Adelaide then.
Yeah.
And another, I think that was also, this time it was Dravid getting 233 and Lakshman getting 148.
Oh
So,
man, I can talk about this for hours, but
I
unfortunately, I
know.
got another session happening in the next.
I know, I was
10.
just about to say we've exceeded the time, but this can go on for a long time. I hope, later when, I do get to meet you, we get to talk a lot about the sport.
We will, Nishad. It's so nice to see the knowledge you possess, and you're in the space where you are doing what you love. And I'm so proud that you are doing what you're doing, and I hope and that you're being paid for it. That's so fantastic. I don't know, you know what I mean. You made a career out of it. It is so amazing to make a career out of your hobby. That should be the endeavor for every young person. Make your hobby your career.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry we just exceeded a bit of the time, but it could go on. Thank you so much, and I'm really honored to chat with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Cheers, cheers, and cheers.
My pleasure. Thank you everyone for joining, and I will
bye
see
bye.
you soon.
Bye. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.